What's going on, guys? This is Remy with Level 1 News, and this is part 2 to Brawlhalla's annual 2021 review. We are reviewing everything that they've brought to us, starting from the previous 2020 anniversary event being November and going all the way up into 2021's anniversary event, which just passed, and reviewing everything from the patches, the crossovers, the characters, battle passes, and the events and little nooks and crannies in between. So without further ado, let's get right into the next thing up. All right, next up being characters. They introduced 3 characters this year. With a good they spread this out decently across all 3 of them. So one being Magyar, being a greatsword hammer legend, so continuing the greatsword, having the 3rd greatsword legend, I think, in rotation. I don't know how I rate him. I'd say he's around like a C plus kind of character. Not, the combination in itself is kind of okay. They're both heavy weapons, but they act sort of differently. But his weapon set is just, his signature set is just kind of not the best in terms of like a real like ranked or tournament setting. So he's just more of like a fun character to play with. Reno is a bug bounty hunter. He's an orb gun legend, and he actually has a pretty cool signature set and stuff like that. He's actually a good character to use. I'd rate him like a B plus or an A minus. Solid moves overall. So he's actually like a decent one to use. Haven't seen too much of him since he's been out, but I'd feel like that would change somewhat over time when people really get used to him. And then the 3rd and last one is Munin. He is Scythe Bow, and he is a pretty solid character so far. The only thing that bugs me about Munin is his weapon set in general. Now, Scythe Bow, in my mind, and let me know in the comments if you agree or not, I thought would be a much cooler character combination for the combination. I thought we'd see something, I don't know, any kind of thing very mystic or very shadowy, with that sort of combination of a scythe and a bow. And I feel like this probably missed the mark on that. The bow works very well, but I feel like that whole like the guitar riffing could have happened with another weapon. Didn't need to be the scythe, so that we kind of saved this weapon combination for something that's a little bit cooler. The only thing that I could consider is that if any sort of crossover happens with this character, it probably have possibly like a different look to it. But very cool designs on each of the stuff for Munin, so that's not so bad in its own. Don't know how he is placed out in terms of like would it be like in a ranked or tournament setting. Play with him a few times. His moves set as it is just kind of annoying, but he's also, I don't think, hatched enough for any of that, so we'll have to see and wait for the future. Overall, in the characters of rating them, I would love to have seen a 4th character in the roster for this year. They only had 3, so it felt like a little light in between. And then obviously none of them felt like they were that strong of characters, in my personal opinion. But they added 3 characters. I think what's going to happen now is that they might just do 3 characters in the year. I could be wrong, and they could be doing different things different years, but I can imagine with a roster set of 54 characters, they're gonna slow down the process of making like a bunch of characters. Instead of having like the next 3 or 4 years, they almost have like 100 characters. That math is wrong, but you know what I mean by that. And I mean, being 4 years out and they almost have a crazy amount of characters is not it's not a bad problem to have if they have that many people still playing this game. So it's just something to see. Next year, hopefully they have cooler weapon sets, cooler moves with those characters, or just very different kind of moves and stuff like that, and and probably introducing more characters in the pipeline than just the 3. But who knows? We'll see what that looks like. Okay, next we have battle passes. So they've had 2 this year. First being Season 3, Jotun Winter Battle Pass Season 3. and that introduced new skins. And the way the process goes for battle passes is there's 3 skins for characters within the battle pass, a whole weapon set within that, a whole color set, a set of emotes, avatars, sidekicks, and an epic skin. So even the Jotun Winter progressive skin had the Mako, and the Mako wasn't as strong as well. Those weapon combinations for like how those like are animated are weird on that character, so I'm not even sure if that was necessary, but that is what it is. Obviously trying to rate them, I won't name every single skin that there is on each of these, because I feel like this video already is running pretty long, but let me know if you like that breakdown still for every single thing. I can definitely go through that, but the 3 skins that they had for the Jotun Winter, I think the best one was the Bodvar at the very end, the Thor one, and I'm not even 100% which one the other one wasn't too strong in general. However, the epic skin with Brynn was one of the better skins that there is, being her little unicorn that pops out and stuff. Very, very good skin. Also the emotes that happen, yeah, very cool emotes, being the one that you're like on the boat with someone rowing, so that's a team one, or like one that you partner up with someone else and you get involved, and the one that you bang on the table and you do that with someone else, and then the one you lay flat and you're dead. They had very good emotes. I think the emotes were some of the better things on the pass, and then even some of the avatars were really cool, and the sidekicks as well. So between that, the colors, all that was very solid on the Jotun Winter Battle Pass. I just think the other skins, other than the Boulevard, weren't very strong, but the weapon skins were, and then the epic skin was as well. And then the next one being the Exalted Line Battle Pass, which just ended. That's season 4. There's some cool stuff on that. I will say that I think that this one was a little bit light on just, I think, everything overall. I don't think it was very, some things were explained that well, so like a lot of the emotes wasn't really talked about, but that's because I don't think they're very strong in general, the emotes. I think that there's possibly one that's a team one. I'm not 100%, but all the there's not that many to begin with. You know, being the one that kind of does like this little clap thing with the hands overhead. Everybody uses that one, so that's pretty funny. And then, but the skins in general in the past actually look pretty cool. Definitely love the Queen 9, being a Queen 9 maid. She has a very cool skin, but overall all the skins are pretty cool in the past. And then even the Diana skin looks pretty crazy in itself. I haven't used much of her, but that one's pretty crazy. And then the Exalted Line being also the progressive skin. And this is the first time that we've actually had like a solid storyline happening with the battle passes, which I would love to see more of. That was a very cool idea, and they had a little like a little video kind of explaining some of that. It'd be great if they had some animation in between. This sort of lends to the fact that, you know, we'd like to see some sort of storyline happen in Brawlhalla, and I think this would be the closest that you could get to having that. So if we just added more emphasis on in between the battle passes and what each person is doing in the lore, or they're like sort of like alternate reality type things, or sort of extremes, that'd be really cool. So the progressive skin being the Mordix that sort of transforms from his human version into like the craziest, like, you know, wolf character he can be. That was pretty cool. The only thing that I wasn't feeling was the last bit of the progressive skin for Mordix. Kind of looks just like an extreme version of his regular skin. So I mean, if you really want to break it down between the meta devs, it almost looks like what meta devs are like a 1.5 version in a very like elite way for the characters. It's almost like Mordix was denied the title of meta dev, and so he's this crazy ass wolf thing, and that's like a 1.5 version of him being pissed. But the weapons that he has and stuff like that look pretty decent. The scythe is kind of just okay, but very interesting on that. Battle passes in general, love them. Great idea overall from Brawlhalla. I've been waiting for that for a long time, so it's great that they introduced it last year. I think that the wait in between them is extremely long. and I think that they just need to sort of cut these a bit from the end of Battle Pass Season 2, which ended in the end of November of 2020, to the beginning of season of Jotun was like 4 or 5 months, which is pretty crazy, being that there are some companies that do battle passes within their games each month, but in the least, you know, having 3 months of a battle pass and then, you know, having maybe like a month, possibly 2-month break, and then going into the next one, sort of how they did 1 to 2, would be ideal, instead of like 3 to 4 months of a break. Because now we've gotten a teaser for next year, for the next battle pass, which will be next year. And if we wanted to do like a month or so that, you know, that the battle pass ended, then we should see it in January. Will we see it in January? I think it's a little doubtful, but you never know. We'll see how that kind of works out, and maybe they have a good flow of it. Okay, and last up being of the updates are crossovers, and I left this at last for a good reason. This is some of the stuff that, you know, people obviously have paid attention to Brawlhalla over the years, and if you look over the cast of all the crossovers, they have a wide collection of different things going on. So that's always very interesting. Now they introduced 4 this year. I thought it would only be 3, and there was a surprise one at the very end, which I'll talk about, but being from the last crossover, which was September 2020, to this crossover was a really long time as well. I felt like they just started to try to get back into the kickstart of, you know, things that they were doing in 2021, and they really try to get like a hiatus, maybe for like a whole mental health break. Who knows? You know, obviously 2020 was a very hard year for a lot of people, but you know, this is the introduction of a new crossover. So the first one being Kung Fu Panda. Very interesting of a crossover, but kind of fitting in itself. Every character, you know, being that those are like CG animated characters, look good within this world of being this cartoon. And you know, they actually are all fitting characters. So very cool on that, being Kung Fu Panda, that being Po epic crossover skin, who was Wushang, Tigress epic crossover skin, and then the Tai Lung epic crossover skin, which was the Mordex or whatever. So all with their respective sort of signature effect changes. And then there's a new KO effect with Master Chifu, which is actually pretty interesting. And they even had a new game mode, the Showdown or whatever, which it basically lets you play on this flat surface map that you can't get like KO'd like by falling and stuff, but there's traps and stuff like that, and you can fall out of the, like, you know, I think through the ceiling or from the sides, or it's probably really just the sides or whatever. Not a really memorable game mode, it's just kind of added there. But you know, the actual the music and the new maps or whatever, all the art for it looks really, really cool on this. So they really did a good job on this crossover. The next one, and probably one of the crazier ones that happened this year, being a E3 announcement from Ubisoft's conference. This was definitely on the wish list, my own, and I think a lot of people I heard chatter over the years, being in Reddit and stuff, and that was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And instead of even adding like just 2 of them, they added all 4. So Donatello, Raphael, Michelangelo, Leonardo are all in there with their respective characters. I won't get through all of those, but these are probably some of the cooler looking signature effect replacements that I've seen on any of the epic skins. So really, really cool. Really, like, the idea is awesome on how they did some of these, especially Raphael with Ragnar being the ninja stars instead of, you know, the breath or whatever, a fire that comes out of his mouth. I really was like, I lost it a little bit when I saw this. I was like, no way, this is awesome. So don't know how they were gonna top it, but this one was really, really cool. That happened in June. And then next up being like almost like a season 2 of The Walking Dead. This in general is like an interesting crossover. It's as interesting as the WWE, and it is what it is. Just, you know, the WWE ones you just necessarily need, but you know, they're also fans of WWE, so it is interesting to have it there. This year's Walking Dead added Negan, which would be the first greatsword epic crossover skin, and then Maggie, being a Jala epic crossover skin. So you know, both with they have like signature effects having to do with zombies and stuff. So pretty cool on its own, but I think it's just always interesting that this is like a crossover in general. And while I thought that it was done for the year, they blessed us with my top wish list crossover, which was announced during BCX, and that is Street Fighter. I have been dreaming of a Street Fighter crossover since I've been playing Brawlhalla for a while now. It's gotta be a couple of years. So I literally lost it when I saw this during BCX over the weekend. Kudos to the dev team. I've spoken to these people in the past, all cool, interesting people, and I think that I've even said that in a past interview or something, where I've asked like, oh, possibly this, possibly that. So it's really cool that they were able to add this, and you know, more in the future. And the Street Fighter crossover being adding Ryu as Petra, which I've mained Petra before, Chun-Li as Wushang, and then Akuma as Val, and that is Val's third skin. I think Akuma could have been even Dust, to be honest. We could have used a cool bamboo stick, and then obviously an orb as well when, you know, interchanging the moves. But I get the Val. Val's a very versatile, interchangeable character. So yeah, it is also the first character to get free epic crossover skins. So not everybody is happy about that, but it is what it is, and at least we're getting Street Fighter. So I am with it, and hopefully this is more, you know, this is the first of maybe what could be another set of crossovers that happen for Street Fighter. Maybe a little Bison, maybe a little Sagat, maybe a little Guile, maybe a little Ken, and this list could go on, but I would love to see all of it. You know, if we want to go into what I would love to see this next crossovers, Ori and the Blind Forest, which is definitely a crossover that can happen, which is technically a Yumiko skin perfectly with the hammer and that bow, whatever, being that that character has it. You could say, well, that's a Microsoft property, but that's a Microsoft property that's been on multiple platforms at this point. It's on Nintendo Switch and stuff, so they're pretty good about like lending out certain properties. Ori and the Blind Forest crossover would be awesome. And then we'd obviously want to see certain animes, Dragon Ball being probably at the top, and then some other games or whatever as well that people would be asking for. Dead Cells, that would be awesome, being that there's now a great sword. That would be a good crossover to kind of have. Definitely comment below to tell me what your best crossovers would be to add that sort of to the ongoing list of possible what we can see next year. But Street Fighter was at the top. Wish list completed, and moving on to that, are we also seeing the introduction to a few things ranked, being that they added a new mode to ranked that would be rotating. First being Kung Fu. So this is something that people have really wanted. They wanted to see another rotating ranked queue, which is very cool, something to get into, something to master. Obviously than just playing custom games in it. So that was very cool to see, and they added that in spring. Amazon Prime bundles, people have been asking that for years, possibly like an Amazon Prime like color set and stuff like that. But it's interesting that they did bundles, being that we have battle passes that have colors in their own anyway. So that was very cool to see too. There might have been slight things here and there, but the other things being modes. The only modes they added were the modes that were attached to crossovers. They usually do it that way anyway, but last year they added like a capture the flag mode on its own. This year they added a showdown event. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles having the best one, which is crew battles. Crew battles basically lets you kind of do a tag match, but you're doing a tag match that like once the person gets KO'd, then the next one goes up. It would be cool to really see a actual tag match. You know, where you could jump in and out, but we'll see what kind of crossover would possibly invent that sort of game type. Maybe a Dragon Ball that kind of mimics the Dragon Ball Fighters. So there's that, and then Street Fighter is introducing a fighters mode where you have a life bar and you only get KO'd if the life bar is fully done. So that's going to be very interesting. Those are the game modes that they introduced during these. So pretty much 3, and having to do with crossover skins. None of them are really crazy except for crew battles. Crew battles is definitely something here to stay. They actually had an entire tournament surrounding that, so I could see a lot more of something with crew battles happening, and hopefully ranked with crew battles has this rotation as well, as we'd like to see that. So if we had to rate this year for Brawlhalla 2021 year 6, we'd probably give the overall score a B, or something like a 75 to 80%. Technically it would have been like a B minus if it wasn't for the Street Fighter crossover that happened, because that was pretty epic at the end. Why we didn't give it higher, there are a few things that we'd like to see in Brawlhalla in general. You know, we love the game. I feel like in the last like 2 years, maybe 2 years and a half, there's been a couple things that's been stagnant. There's been a lot of, I feel like, viewer complaints, and I feel like there are a few things that's in the esports scenes, and unless it affects the esports scenes, it doesn't trickle down into like the regular player set, and which, you know, affects the overall gameplay, whether they think so or not, because it's obviously not affected in a tournament level. Doesn't mean that the problems aren't real. So, you know, the few of the things that we'd like to see in the game, cross progression being the first one. You know, it's something that they always talk about is being worked on, but it's never done. My personal opinion, I don't really think this is being worked on anymore. I think it's at a point where it only requires a flip and a switch and it will happen. It's more so that they laid out the tables of each component of what's supposed to happen. They talked to like Sony, they talked to Microsoft and all that other stuff. And it's a matter of like them just saying, yes, 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 this is how this allocates towards this sort of profit and all this other stuff. But if you still look at it, so with that being said, there's a reason of why things are separate. Whether it's because they're seeing more money in each platform, and if they put them together, obviously there's less revenue. You know, because if it was up to just the devs, I think they just turned it on. So it's very interesting that that's not happened yet. If you want to check out our video and breakdown of why it definitely is, why we definitely feel like it wasn't going to happen this year, and for anyone that said that it was going to, look at that video and let me know when you think that's going to happen, as that was months and months ago and we're still not there. So if it's going to happen, it's going to happen very like, it's going to be a whole giant event maybe for it, who knows, but I just don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. That being one, and the other one being some sort of gameplay evolution. Now this may be a little bit orthodox, but we're being in a game that is a fighting game. And now while not all fighting games do this, there is a difference between seeing something like, you know, games having patches like Street Fighter 5, Dragon Ball Fighters, and things like that. And even Smash Brothers. While you say these games have lasted 2, 3, 4 years, they've had all these patches and stuff like that. Realistically, at some point, these games get sequels, and with sequels come changes, and some of them can be pretty drastic. Could be drastic to the characters, could be drastic to the gameplay, could be drastic to the overall look and feel of the game. Now this is a game that's just supposed to last years and years, and I think that there should be some sort of changes with that. Now they try to do some overhauls with the weapons, and it's just like a slight refresh with like they change like 1 or 2 of the weapon handles. The cannon being the last one. I would have hoped they've done one every year, but they actually don't. They didn't do any this year to my knowledge, or maybe they did the cannon at the beginning of the year. I don't remember. But they should be doing that, I think, with characters, especially when they create new characters. New characters have new types of signatures that do different things. One being the sole purpose of getting the progressive skin in the last battle pass, the Exalted Lion, and you did the input attack. A character has a signature that can do an attack forward, and they can do an attack back on a specific signature. And there's only 3 to 4 characters that have that type of move in a roster of 54 characters. Now that's insane. And at that point, they needed to make another thing let you get that progressive skin, or they should just realize that there's just not enough of that happening. So with that being said, I think that that's just a great place to start. I think they should start with like 2 to 3 characters per year and add an effect, new effect, or change an effect of a character's signature. It changes the meta a little bit for the character, and it also brings a refresh for characters that, for people that didn't use them before, used to use them, or want to use them new. It's like makes them look at them like, oh, I want to use this character because they have a new effect in their move. Think about it as like Brawlhalla 1.5 going into 2.0. And you could say that that's already happened, but maybe the next iteration of that. So it's always interesting. So like an example is Bodvard's move that he hooks you and swings you back. There could be a way where he hooks and then pushes you forward instead of you being hooked back or whatever. So that move can move back and forward. Add a new way of which it is, or even change the signature in general just to overhaul the character a little bit. Retooling of the hitboxes, and then probably even seeing slight signature delays. There's no punishment for signatures. They pretty much bounce back immediately and you're on to the next move. You know, there could be a lot of fight with that, being that, oh, you just need to be a better character. No, if it doesn't affect the esports player, which they don't abuse signatures in general, then it doesn't look like it's an overall problem. But let me tell you, it's an overall problem. So these are just some of the things that I think that should be looked at for next year. Otherwise, I think that Brawlhalla is one of those games that it keeps me sucked in. I could be mad at a lot of different things. There are certain characters that have 0 delay on their signatures. There are characters that have more of a delay. And if your move is weaker, you should have 0 delay. But if your move is super strong, like all of Teros's moves, you should have like a solid second delay after you do every signature. And you don't have that. If you go across every single character, play technically the same and beat anybody with the slight delay of differences, then no character is really different than the other except their signatures. So their stats don't really mean anything. And I think Boomy has mentioned this before when he's complained about the game. So these are just some of the things that we'd like to see added. We love Brawlhalla. We love all the stuff that they do with crossovers. This is our rating for this year, so we'll see what's happening next year. If you like this video, please comment, like, and subscribe so we can give you more of this content. This has definitely been a long-winded video with a lot of content, so let us know if we even bored you along the way, or if you'd like to see more of this and more yearly reviews for other games as well and what those games might be. We had a blast sort of filming this, going through the year of Brawlhalla, and we can't wait to see what happens in 2022. This is Remy with Level 1 News and Gaming, and we'll catch you guys in the next one. Enjoy.